From KGW News, this is Straight Talk with Laurel Porter.
Hello and welcome to Straight Talk. I'm Laurel Porter. After months of campaigning, a barrage of wall-to-wall political ads, mailers, and text messages asking for your vote, the general election 2024 is in the books. And Portland just completed its first ever election using ranked choice voting to elect a new mayor and an expanded 12-person city council, one that gives representation for the first time to all 4 of the city's geographic districts. And in Multnomah County, new leaders will be joining the Board of Commissioners as it looks ahead to tackling some of the county's toughest problems, including homelessness. In this episode of Straight Talk, we have gathered together some of the big preliminary winners from the election. We'll get their reaction, their plans for the city and county's future, and how they might work together to achieve their goals. Welcome to my guests from Portland's East Side District. 1, newly elected City Council member Candace Avalos, an environmental justice advocate. She will be one of 3 representatives giving East Portland a direct voice for the first time in the city's history. Also joining us, current City Commissioner Dan Ryan, who has served on the commission since 2020. He won a seat on the new council in District 2, representing North and Northeast Portland. And from District 3, representing Southeast Portland, Tiffany Koyama Lane joins us. She is a 3rd grade teacher at Sunnyside Environmental School and has been a teacher for 16 years. And finally, social worker Shannon Singleton joins us. She won the Multnomah County Commission District 2 seat, defeating former Portland Mayor Sam Adams. Welcome everyone to Straight Talk. It is so nice to have you here, and congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you, Laura.
Now, full transparency, we're taping this on Friday afternoon, and we don't have the official final numbers yet, but everything's looking really good for all of you. So we'll be waiting for those numbers. By the time this airs, it'll probably be official. So let's start with Candace. You're going to represent East Side, one of 3 people. Tell us what the significance is for the people of East Portland that they now have a voice, and what were you hearing from people when you were campaigning?
Absolutely. Well, on day 1 of our new city council, East Portland is going to have more representation than they've had in our entire 100-year history, and that is huge. And East Portlanders really understand and feel the significance because they look around and they see the lack of investment, the lack of attention, the lack of political power that East Portland has had. And so on the doors, there was definitely a lot of skepticism, and I've never had a politician ever knock on my door, and so I think there's going to be a lot of trust we need to build, but I think people do feel excitement for having some real representation for the first time.
And Commissioner Dan Ryan, you have been the representative for the entire city at large since 2020, but now you're going to represent one of 3 people where you live in North and Northeast Portland. What's the significance of that? And what were you hearing from people when you were campaigning? What are their interests? What are their priorities?
Yeah, what was fascinating to me is how many of the priorities I was listening to were the same ones I heard in 2022 citywide. So livability just continues to be at the top of people's list, as well as the fact that it costs more to live here and their services have gone down. So I kept hearing a lot of get back to basics type messaging. And I also heard some real public safety issues with like a mom that said, I just want to go to the park. I want to be able to use the restroom that's open and that's clean and not have to go back home when my child inevitably needs to use the restroom. And elders in Lloyd areas saying, I just want to go on a walk and feel safe to go on that stroll. So I think Portlanders really want us to focus on those issues throughout the city. And each of us have different issues that are germane to our area. I think in North Portland, it's where the Columbia and the Willamette come together. So when there's a big one, what will happen when the railroad cut that would divide that area and they'd be on an island? So we really have to, the 3 of us will have to really focus on a better emergency management plan for such incidents like that.
Well, it really is a new era. Tiffany's going to represent one of 3 people representing Southeast Portland. You're a school teacher. Why did you decide to run, and what were you hearing from people when you were out campaigning?
Yeah, I decided to run because as someone who's taught in our public schools for 16 years, all of these different challenges that we talk about throughout our city, they bleed into our classrooms. They show up in my 3rd grade classroom. In my 3rd grade classroom, I've had families lose their housing in the middle of the school year. In the middle of in my 3rd grade classroom, I've had students bring their dirty laundry to school because they don't have access to a washer dryer. In my 3rd grade classroom, I've had families bring their utility bills to school because they don't speak English and they can't figure out who's going to help them figure out how to pay those bills. I am so excited that we're going to make City Hall a place of service for my students, for their families, for all Portlanders. What I really heard, my team knocked almost 15,000 doors.
Wow.
We heard a lot of hope that the city and county could really work together, that there could be more moving closer, that there could be more collaboration, and that there would be less finger pointing. And I'm feeling so hopeful, especially sitting here with all of these folks here. I know that we're going to be able to do that.
We'll talk about the city and county working together. Representing the county for us here at the table is Shannon Singleton from District 2. And we should say that you have won your race outright as of Friday. Your race was called. You were in a runoff. The county's not using ranked choice voting yet. That starts in 2026. So you were in a runoff from May with the former Portland Mayor, Sam Adams. You won with 53%, I think. And he was running on a platform. He was kind of billed as a more moderate candidate, a platform that included jailing homeless individuals who didn't obey the no camping ban and refused shelter. You said you disagreed with that. You said that wasn't a solution to homelessness. What do you think your victory in this race means? What message does it send?
I think it sends a message that the voters of District 2 really want the county to step up and do something to serve the most vulnerable, and that while yes, jail may not be the right answer, it's not going to solve their homelessness. They definitely want us to keep acting with urgency. I talked a lot about, while I was briefly at the Joint Office of Homeless Services, that we had purchased properties that still are sitting vacant and could be shelters. Those are some of the things that I think really resonated with our voters, to say these things already exist. You need to step up and get them open and get folks into those shelter sites. So I think really a lot of the values, and what I heard a lot was hope. People are hopeful. And I think, just as Tiffany shared, I've had such great conversations with city council members who were running as candidates and now are close to being elected, if not already. And there's just this idea of how can we actually collaborate together, and the idea of representation at two levels of government, I think, offers a lot of opportunity.
Well, you were talking about talking to the city council, and I just want to touch on a moment how different this ranked choice voting was campaigning. And I heard that it was more congenial, somewhat more fun. We have a few pictures of some of the candidates out campaigning together. So when they go door to door, maybe if they didn't get one voter's first choice, they might get their second ranking. And Dan Ryan, we also will be able to see a picture of you, it will come up here soon, of you out in your Halloween costume. I think you said you were a sea turtle,
yes, a sea
out
turtle.
Campaigning, but you look like you're having so much fun. Tell us, what was the nature? You've been involved with other campaigns. How did this campaign compare to previous campaigns with this ranked choice voting?
It was more personal and it was more joyful because, well, the first time it was during COVID, so it was, on a Zoom call trying to get to know people. And then citywide, you just don't have the agency and the time to get out all across the city. So it was actually really heartwarming to get back to my roots, which is District 2. I was born and raised there, and just having conversations in neighborhoods that I'm really familiar with. And it was delightful to have real dialogue, and also just doing more sign waving and just having more fun, getting to know the voters and listening to them, taking more time. We're moving into a more constituent-facing city council, so it was a great opportunity to have a runway into that, an on-ramp into that new style of government.
What was your experience like, Candace?
Yeah, I also ran in 2020, so Dan and I were, here we are again.
The Zoom.
On Zoom, and it was a very different experience. I remember I only had like 2 weekends on the doors before we had the shutdown, and so that really changed the game as far as how you reach voters. But then now with the new system where we can be district specific and we can work with our colleagues that were running that had similar values. I definitely shared values with many colleagues, and we would knock on doors together. We would talk to voters, and I think this new form of government, obviously I care a lot about it as somebody who was on the Charter Commission, and I am ready to say that it worked. I'm ready to say that ranked choice voting, having districts, is going to be a positive change for Portland, and it's only going to improve in the years to come.
And there were some naysayers who thought maybe this was too much for Portland to handle, the ranked choice voting and also this new government. You think it worked?
I do. I think the proof is in the vast diversity of thoughts and identities and experiences that we have on the council so far. And I think it also, because it was very cordial and folks were incentivized to work together, I feel like we're coming in with a new culture of a council that's ready to be we're ready to get things done. When it's not about performance, it's about bringing practical solutions to Portlanders. And I think that type of government really affected that.
How about you, Tiffany? What was your experience out there? You said you and your team knocked on 15,000 doors. What was it like?
Yeah, well, and you also had that great picture of Angelita Murillo and I on Halloween. We had coordinating costumes. I was the mailbox, she was the ballot, and we went around and explained ranked choice voting. And
Great idea.
it was great getting to team up together. We canvassed together. We talked to people about both of us. We also talked about how this is a sign that this new form of government is already working, because it's encouraging us, incentivizing us to be collaborative already, to be kind humans, to start working together. This is the way that Analita and I were able to work together is something that never would have been able to happen in the old system.
Well, things were a little different in your system. It was pretty adversarial between, you didn't have the ranked choice voting, as I mentioned, between you and your opponent. The current county commission has been, Shannon, embattled. There has been some finger pointing. A lot of voters haven't been happy with the progress they think they see the county making. The chair, Vega Peterson, has a low voter approval rating, but the dynamic could shift in January with your election. Also Megan Moyer, another progressive, Vince Jones-Dixon, who was elected outright in May. Then we have Julia Brim-Edwards, who's on the commission already, and then, of course, Chair Vega Peterson. What do you think the dynamic's going to be like on the county board when you start? And you said you start actually join in 3 weeks.
Yes, because this was a special election, I'll start as soon as the election is certified. So I'll spend a little bit of time with the current commission, replacing Commissioner Beeson. But really, I think the shift is that we're going to have a number of folks, including myself, who have frontline experience in the problems that the county faces. And that hasn't been the case for multiple years, but to have multiple electeds who have that experience is going to be new. I've had, again, great conversations both with Vince, with Megan. Julie and I chatted briefly and are looking to continue conversations and just really get to know each other and figure out how to develop relationship and work together. And similarly, I've had outreach from the chair's office. So I think, everyone, the energy right now is very hopeful about how we can all take some steps forward to work together and, again, serve the community, coming back to what are we there to do and get these solutions in place for them.
I know one of your top priorities, both the county and the city, will be homelessness, and the new mayor-elect, Keith Wilson, who we'll have on Straight Talk in a few weeks, has a plan that he says can end unsheltered homelessness by the end of June. So let's talk about that relationship between the city and county. And Commissioner Ryan, you and Commissioner Mapps and Commissioner Gonzalez had been moving forward with an effort to sever that homeless services agreement with the county. But then a day after the election and a day before the vote was to take place on Thursday, that ordinance, you all dropped that ordinance. Why did you drop it?
Yeah, well, Mayor-elect Wilson made it really clear that they would like us to table it. So out of respect for the new mayor, it just was good manners. And so that was the first. And the intention is still there. The intention for all of us is to improve the system. I think we can all admit the system needs improvement. I think we also need to take some time to all figure out what our North Star is. And I've been a little frustrated over the last few years that I haven't heard that, not just from the city and the county, but also Metro, who continues to play a very big role. I think all of us could get on the same page about what does that accountability look like? What does that transparency look like? How can we get metrics that matter so that the taxpayers who are paying for this can see what is actually being done on the ground? And so I hope that we can just take a reset and have that type of common sense conversation that all Portlanders would like us to have.
The chair said that because the three of you were running for office, and you're the only one of the four commissioners that actually has been elected, but the three of you, Gonzalez, Mapps, and yourself, were running for election, it was a political stunt.
It was actually the timing. We were supposed to come back and have a conversation in 3 months when we had the first vote in the summer. I was a no vote then. And I was a no vote because for 3 years I've been putting amendments in and they keep getting watered down. And my amendments, I think, are pretty rational. They're about having more transparency about the data. It's about including the providers into the system and having their information more shared readily. And also the table needs more inclusivity. Right now it's the chair and the provider industry network that's at the table, and we need to let in some more people from the private sector as well who pay for this tax.
Favor severing that agreement with the county?
It was about that we had to have the courage to say we can do better.
But
and
I
think the tensions. What's that?
Would you sever the agreement now? Would you think it should be severed?
I think right now I can read the room and count the votes. I think right now we're doing the right thing. We have a new mayor, and Mayor-elect Wilson's made it clear that he would like us to take that off the table, so we did. To have tension about the most important issue facing our city
what the rest of our table
is a good idea. Like, we're supposed to have dialogue. Yeah.
Candace, what do you think?
At the end of the day, the city and the county have to work together. And so I want to see a solution where we have a true partnership, where we both understand what our roles are and we
Yes.
agree what the milestones are that we're trying to reach. So I'm glad to see that that was tabled, because I think now that we have a new council, it's representative, we've got new leadership at the county, this is the right time to reset our relationship as people and as leaders.
You're nodding your head, Dan. What do you think, Tiffany?
I agree. I am glad that that decision was walked back. I'm also so glad to hear what both of you are saying. I also just heard Commissioner Ryan talk about, what I heard is finding where all of our values are and seeing where the overlap is in that Venn diagram. And that's something that I do with my students that I really believe that we can also do, is making sure we're on the same page about where we're going. And as much as we can end any duplicating of efforts and as much de-siloing as we can do, and working together with the county, I believe is incredibly important.
And from the county perspective, and we should say, Shannon, you ran the Joint Office of Homeless Services for about 8 months. What do you think that relationship should be when it comes to homelessness between the county and the city?
I absolutely think we have to come back to what are the values, what are the goals, and getting the clarity of roles and responsibilities is vitally important for that department. I would add, I worked at the Portland Housing Bureau when there were 2 separate systems before the joint office, and the dysfunction of those 2 systems was for the people on the ground. I had women coming into my shelter who had kids, but because the family system was operating out of the county, them getting access to that to get their kids back, it was so overly complicated for the person on the ground. So I hope as we enter this conversation, we recenter the people who need the services and make sure that we're designing systems that function for them.
Shannon, Tiffany, Dan, Candace, thank you so much. It's time for us to take a break. What's this new government look like? How will the council and mayor, city administrator, county work together? And what about its role in a new Trump presidency? We'll talk about that after the break. Welcome back to Straight Talk. I'm Laurel Porter. We are talking with some of the preliminary winners of this week's election in Portland and Multnomah County. Welcome once again to my guests, newly elected or preliminarily newly elected Portland City Council members from the 1st District representing Portland's East Side, Candace Avalos. From the 2nd District, Dan Ryan joins us. In January, the current commissioner will represent North and Northeast Portland on the new council. And from the 3rd District, Tiffany Koyama Lane is here, one of the 3 newly elected council members who will represent Southeast Portland. And we're also happy to have joining us Shannon Singleton, who was elected to the Multnomah County Board of Commissioners. Once again, it's great to have you all here. And I keep mentioning preliminary because we are taping this Friday afternoon and we're waiting for the final results to come out, I imagine by Saturday and Sunday when this airs, and Monday they'll be official. So this is going to be a whole new system, Dan, from what you're used to on the current city council. The council, these 12 members, are going to have a lot more power because the mayor's not going to have veto power. How do you see this all fitting together?
Well, first, I hope that we take a pause and look at what's working. So I've served during Portland's toughest time the last 4 years. It's been rough. And I would say most people, even when I went to doors, said, thank you. Things are looking much, much better than they did even 2 years ago. So I hope that we look at what's working and we listen to the staff that is driving that work. I think for all of us, it's really about, one, we have to get to know each other on the council, and we have to then come together and talk about if we're going to keep the same top 3 or 4 priorities, or if we're going to shift them a bit. And so I look forward to those level-setting conversations. I think that I always have to remember that the current city administrator, Mike Jordan, has a lot of experience, and there's a lot of well-seasoned people currently in place.
He's going to help with the transition, right, to a new city administrator.
And then I'm sure that the mayor-elect will have his opportunity to make their biggest decision, of course. And I think that it's just going to be really important that we actually take time to get to know each other a bit, because we have been campaigning for a long time. And I had 21 people campaigning, and many times that felt like they were campaigning at me. It was not as congenial when you're the person that's been there for the last 4 years. And so and it's okay, but I think that we need to just now take some time to actually level set, because Portlanders want us to focus on services. They really want us to remember this isn't about ideology. This is nonpartisan work. This is a city. This is infrastructure. This is public safety. This is livability. And we have too many families that are leaving Portland. And what we've always been is a city that attracts families. Multi-generational families live here. Our number one asset has always been livability. And so we have to make sure that we continue to covenant that.
Candace, what's your vision for your role on the city council?
Well, I'm really excited to see that the city councilors will be able to move away from some of the bureaucracy and the day-to-day, moving that into an executive mayor and the city administrator so that we can truly be legislative. And what I think that means is that we will be able to have a neighborhood view and make decisions that will have a citywide impact by crafting policies, working, of course, across with the mayor's office and all of the bureaus, but also just getting on the ground and talking to Portlanders and asking them what they want to see in this new form of government. People are excited. We need to ride this energy and agree, just like let's take an assessment of what is working, what things do we want to maintain, and what are new things that we want to try. I really hope that we be really innovative and try new things because that's what Portlanders are asking for.
And with this new council, we have a lot more representation. And Tiffany, history has been made with your election. Tell us about that.
It's so exciting. Yeah, up until now, we have never had anyone Asian or Asian American on Portland City Council, and we are about to send 2 Asian Americans, very likely. I'm Japanese American, and Samir Kanal in District 2 is also Asian American. And so this is so exciting. I've had parents with young children who are Asian who are saying, my children are looking at you and they see this, and this is really huge and really important.
And Shannon, how do you see your role on the county board with this new system of government in the city?
Again, I think there's so much opportunity. I've been thinking about how are we, as District 2 representatives, how are we working together to look at how we can leverage resources between the city and the county? The people who live there don't necessarily spend the time to figure out who does what. That's our job, I think. So how can we actually work together and think about what's happening for District 2? I think there's a lot of opportunity because of representation as well. Even just for me as a resident of Portland, I'm excited of the folks that will be representing me in District 2. And knowing that there's going to be people who come from all different kinds of experience and different types of expertise. I've had the privilege of working with Alana Pertle-Guinea in the past, so I know what she brings to the table as well. And so I think there's so much opportunity of different expertise, different ideas, different lenses of the world, different walks of life that will just make this a much richer environment for our region.
I want to touch on the elephant in the room, so to speak. What you see your role as a city council and county board within the context of the Donald Trump presidency again. And we just have a couple of minutes, but I want to kind of get you all to weigh in on that. We'll start with Shannon this time.
I really think that it's vital that we're ensuring that there's safety for our community and for the vulnerable members in particular of our community. We know what types of attacks we'll see. We know what types of communities are going to face some of the harshest criticisms, and we know what the past Trump presidency has said about our beautiful city. So I think it's really important that we're thoughtful about how we're supporting and lifting up our community, and again, ensuring that we're a safe haven.
Tiffany.
I agree with all of that. I believe it's important that we reject what I call the Trump way, which is harmful rhetoric, which is blaming, using policies in a irresponsible way. I am really looking forward to what Shannon said, making sure that Portland can stay safe and be a sanctuary city as needed.
And Dan.
Yeah, well, I'm really excited about our federal delegation. And so what I've learned in this role, my experience is that you work with your federal delegation to work with Washington, D.C. And we have a really solid group of people representing the state of Oregon and the Portland area. I also have to always remember I have to serve everybody. I'm a public servant. I don't get to decide who they voted for president. I have to stay focused on what they want for Portland. And then when I go to doors, they just say, could you please, that street down there, it has a pothole for 2 years now. Could someone please get that fixed? And so I have to remember to just stay focused on the customer service that takes place in my neighborhood in District 2 and share that with my colleagues.
And Candace, about 30 seconds.
At the end of the day, we have autonomy to run our city, and I think we need to stand our ground and make sure that we're protecting our residents and putting into place the vision that they voted for, and that is a brand new representative council. So I am sure that we will do that.
Well, congratulations once again to all of you. We look forward to those final numbers. Tiffany Koyama Lane, Candace Avalos, Dan Ryan, Shannon Singleton. It was really nice to have you here. Thank you for your service and good luck. And I'm just so glad to hear that everybody feels so hopeful. That's a wonderful, hopeful message. And I hope you'll join me next week when my guest is Oregon Senator Jeff Merkley. We'll get his reaction to the coming Trump presidency and the new landscape of the U.S. Senate, where Democrats will now be in the minority. And remember, you can stream Straight Talk on your own schedule. Download the free KGW Plus app, available now on Roku, Apple TV, and Fire TV. We'll see you next week for Straight Talk. Have a great week.